Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to FWED Chat Live. I am Jacqueline Rose, JRose EDU, and I'm here with...
I'm Dana Roberts at EdTech Dana, D-A-I-N-A.
Yes, don't forget that. So we have our information in the descriptions of both these broadcasts, and we are on Periscope, but we're also streaming from Facebook Live today. So if you are checking us out on Periscope, we encourage you to hop over to Facebook and join us there as well. We are Fort Worth ISD Instructional Technology is our page name. And if you're checking us out on Facebook, then make sure you subscribe to us on Periscope so that you just get us double, okay?
All day, every day.
Yes. Cannot get enough. So but we're doing this for the first time, so we're kind of learning as we go with this, so we appreciate your patience. Okay, we are here. We are instructional technology learning coaches with the Division of Academics for Fort Worth ISD. Both of us are.
Yes.
We service elementary through EC through 8, which is early childhood up to 8th grade. So we get the opportunity to work with a lot of different grade levels and do a lot of really cool stuff with kids. So one of our focuses with Fort Worth ISD is literacy. That's a huge push with the district. And in November is Literacy Month, so that's a perfect way for us to highlight this. And we know that literacy has to do with reading. Whenever we hear literacy, we think reading, we think ELA. But that's kind of a misconception because literacy is so much more than that. It's so much more than just reading and just ELA. It's truly an absorption of information, a fluency of information. Can you do something and access your own knowledge and do it successfully? Are you literate in that? So it can be anything from science literacy to financial literacy, which is a huge one.
Yes.
Adults, all of us, still me. Financial literacy is something that we all are working on.
Absolutely.
But it's just the ability to master a concept or a topic. So when we say literacy, please don't think that we are only talking about ELA. We are going to kind of try and break that misconception, and we're going to give you some ideas for ways that you can incorporate literacy with other areas, especially STEM. And STEM, if you're not familiar, would you like to tell them a little bit about what STEM is?
Yes, so STEM is bringing science, technology, engineering, mathematics, things like that into your content area, into all of your lessons, making it cross-curricular and really getting them to go together, that they're not separate things, that we're not just doing a science lesson or we're not just going to break out the technology, we're doing a technology lesson. It should really be embedded in part of all of our lessons that we're doing and teaching all of these skills or all of these things on these topics and ways of doing it. So we're going to really talk about how to bring that into literacy lessons and then how to put literacy into your STEM lessons and kind of have them go back and forth to where they just are very fluid together, and you can really improve your students' engagement by doing that. You can improve their success rates and their understanding and just getting those extra critical thinking skills and those thought processes really rolling with them by putting all these things together with them.
And I think that what Dana just said about the engagement, that piece is huge because as teachers, we are always struggling with how can we engage our students? How can we make this type of learning relevant? How can we make them care? And STEM and literacy, combining those, that's a great way to start because you will have some students that are maybe more inclined to read or they feel more comfortable in ELA, and that was always me. Mm-hmm. So with just like that, you've got students that really excel in science and math and they struggle with reading. So how can we marry those two so that you can tap into the strengths of all students as opposed to just the types that are strong in one category or another? So some things that we have for you guys. Whenever we're going to talk about lower elementary up to high school. However, it does not matter if we give you an idea and say this was done in a senior level college engineering class. Please take it, make it your own. If you teach pre-K, tweak it, differentiate it to where it's going to work for your students. Find the root of what's valuable in the lesson and make it work for you. So a lot of these we're going to be talking about, maybe like I'm going to be sharing some that I did with third graders and some that I've done with fifth graders. That doesn't mean that it can't be done with pre-K or kinder or with seniors. because these lessons can be flexed to fit whatever your needs are. So please keep that in mind. So we talked, do you want to start with early childhood?
Yes.
Lower level?
Yes.
Okay. So pre-K teachers, listen up.
Yes. So talking about taking STEM into your literacy lessons that you're probably already doing with your students. You're doing literacy lessons. You're usually, pick a picture book or a trade book of some type, and you're reading it to the class. But it's so easy to take that book and that lesson and expand it by adding in a STEM project to go along with it with the reading that you're doing. So for example, or a few examples, take a nonfiction book. Say it's about snow. You can read the book about snow, have that conversation, but then have them create a symmetrical snowflake using pattern blocks. So you're bringing in that creativity, you're bringing in the knowledge of what symmetrical means and what that looks like. You're letting them build it and have that thought process of what they need to do to make it symmetrical if they build it and it's not on one side but is on the other, and working those processes out.
And that is a huge point hi Tyler. That's a huge plus when it comes to incorporating any type of an engineering or STEM makerspace type of activity or a mentality to a lesson or content area, because it's procedural thinking, which we do not realize how valuable that is until it's not there. So a lot of times we think, oh, well, I need to go grab something out of my car. That's easy. I can do that. That's common sense. You should know. And we as educators kind of are guilty of playing that they should know game, where really it's procedural thinking in that cognitive step of first this, then this, then this, and knowing why those steps are the way they are, why they're in that order, what happens when those steps mess up, how to adjust, reflect, and move on whenever those steps aren't going the way they should. So just like Dana was talking about the snowflake, if they have someone that messes up, what do? How do they just shut down? Or can you help them build that grit and decide, all right, this is just where we are. This is where we are. What's next? What's our next step?
Absolutely. And if they're not given those chances to make those mistakes and learn from that, they're never going to learn those processes. So by giving them that chance, they have a safe environment where they can make those mistakes because it's part of the process and the design process of it, and they can work through those things in a safe way where they don't feel embarrassed or anything like that. Another example with nonfiction would be if you're reading a book on insects, so to speak, and then you can build an insect out of clay, but you want to give them criteria such as the placement of the parts that they're building has to be in the correct area based on an insect, things like that. So they're working on what insect parts are they in the correct places, but then also you could give them like size constraints that, the legs shouldn't be bigger than the entire body, and working on things like that to create and make it a real looking insect, but out of clay where they're getting some creativity and getting hands-on with it. Some fictional examples, you could read Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Who doesn't love that story? I mean, that's a classic,
That's good. That girl knows what she wants.
I don't know any teacher that doesn't read that in the lower grades. And after you read that, have them work to build a chair or a bed that is perfect for Baby Bear. How fun would that be? I know I would have loved to have done that in school. I never got a chance to do something like that after reading that story. And you could give them certain things like the materials they have to use and give them some different unique type materials to really get those wheels turning on that, or give them a certain time allotment to see if they can pull it off, and then have them even compare what they built and how it was different to the ones in the book, so that they're seeing how is theirs better, what do they need to do to improve upon the ones from the book to theirs, to see what's going to be successful and what's not going to be successful.
And then you could test it out by taking naps.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, who's not down for some nap time, okay? Not just the pre-K teachers want nap time. Everybody wants that, all the way up through seniors. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, another super popular one, having them read it and then build an alphabet tree out of it, using different parts and different materials. Doesn't have to be anything super fancy or expensive. It could be cardboard and paper, and you just give it to them and let them go with it and design an alphabet tree.
And that goes for a lot of these things
Yes.
that we're going to talk about. Is we will often associate makerspace or creation or design thinking with, well, I don't have supplies for that. You don't have to. I would troll garbage, literally, and we would create out of that. And I think that was almost more valuable because they had to stretch their creativity and their innovation even further. So as opposed to, okay, we'll build an insect, and here are 3 styrofoam balls and 3 perfectly shaped pipe cleaners. Instead, I would give them like a toilet paper roll and a plastic bag and then a lump of dirt or something. I mean, maybe not that hard.
Yes, collect all the cardboard.
Yes, I always have to resist. Do I really need to keep this cardboard?
Yes.
But let them really stretch that creativity.
Absolutely. And then the last one is reading the book 21 Elephants, and then having them create and build a bridge that's going to be strong enough to hold, obviously not real elephants, but toy elephants. So just getting some toy, or they could even build the fake elephants and have them have a bridge that supports that. So just different ways of taking those really popular books and things that we're already doing in our classrooms with our literacy lessons and adding those extra STEM activities in afterwards.
Yes, and we will type the titles of those books in the comments as well. So for those on Periscope, it was 21 Elephants, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, OG classic, and Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
And then just any nonfiction book on like snow, insects, or any other nonfiction topic, you could easily take that and adapt it and do projects with it.
So for those that are maybe upper elementary, mid, and again, any of these ideas that we discussed, take it, make it your own, and adapt it to whatever grade level you're teaching. But some of the things that we did when I was in the classroom, I had a group of students that were so talented with science and hands-on stuff, and they were always those ones that had their hands on everything, and they would always bring me something that was what's it called? What did they say? Well, they broke it, basically. They would just tear stuff up, not because they were being malicious. They were so curious, and I knew I needed to captivate on that and really, really use that to kind of spur their learning. So I taught ELA, though. I wasn't a science teacher. I would have them write scripts and develop characters for a YouTube channel called Science Kids with a Z, because that's what makes it cool, according to them. But they would develop their characters, they would write their scripts, and there was so much value and so much excitement when they had that opportunity to write, because it was something that was valuable to them. And then they would do their science experiments and they would film it, and it had that literacy effect where they had to be able to write and type it out, because then we also used tools like TouchCast, and they would type it in the teleprompter. You have to have literacy skills if you're going to be reading from a teleprompter. So that also motivated them to really, if they found a word they didn't know, break it down and figure it out, and figure out other words that they can use because they were going to be reading them off the teleprompter.
And it's so hard to build that motivation for writing.
Yes.
I know from teaching lower elementary for my entire career in the classroom, it's so hard to get that motivation. So if I ever found something that motivated them like that, jump right on it roll with it all the way out the door in the hallway, down the hallway, out the car, down the street, everywhere.
All the ways. So another thing, and this is something that, again, it sounds very lower elementary, but it can be adjusted. If you're reading a book about Christmas, especially this time of year, reading a book about Christmas, then create an ornament or create a snowman. But if you want to kick it up a notch, pick a character of someone that you've been reading, or pick a character from the book and create an ornament as that character. Inferencing was always so hard to teach as an ELA teacher. So this is a way that they can make inferences about their character, and then they could even provide text evidence as to, well, I think that my character would develop a snowman like this, or would create an ornament like this, and this is why. So you're able to assess those inferencing skills and their creating and designing. Let's see, Mr. Limoncello's. I thought, surely that's not the title of a child's book, but it is. But it's Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library, and if you haven't read that, it's good. It's, I would say, upper elementary, junior high level, but again, anyone can do it. I had younger kids that read that as well, and it's all about these kids getting trapped in a library, and it's a little bit spooky, honestly, for those. And they would have to solve puzzles to try and get out. So create puzzles. My students created a Breakout EDU based off the Mr. Limoncello's Escape from the Library book, and it was awesome. And they were so creative and so hands-on, and we were able to appease those that were strong in ELA and those that were strong in STEM. If you are reading those dreaded nonfiction inventor series, whether you're high school or middle or junior high or whatever, sometimes they can be a bit of a beating, but have them really, really use their literacy skills, read the books, get to know those inventors, and then create another invention in their style. Or why do you think they would create that? Why do you think this inventor would do that? You're using inferencing skills and you're creating. My favorite book ever, The Giver, which I love so much, make a stop motion movie or a coding program where you are Jonas discovering color for the first time. So you can code an apple to change red or black and white. You know, when there's that moment where it changes. Love, it gets me every time. In social studies, again, literacy is not just ELA. Use your green screen or develop a script. Use the ability for students to put themselves in either historical figures or characters, situations, bodies, wherever they are, places in history, and have them reenact that and kind of be able to explain why. So we would do the front lines of the Civil War. What was going on? What were those conversations like? And then we would reenact them with a green screen. And it just made it so much more exciting because social studies, it was a struggle, but it's so cool. It has so many awesome possibilities. So I loved being able to kind of incorporate those things. Another thing, design a book cover. If you have students that are constantly drawing and etching and they want to improve and do something better, give them a book or read a book as a class that does not have a cover on it. It's just solid. Or read them a short story and online, and then have them create and design a book cover and have them be able to explain why. And what is it from the story that made you want the book cover to look like this? And then reveal the book cover of what it actually looks like, or vote on it. Use your evaluative skills as well. Another thing is when you're reading a story and you come to the problem, the conflict, stop. Oh, there's Shayna. Hi, Shayna. Once you're reading a story and you come to the problem of the story, whether it's a short story, a long one, whatever, stop. Stop reading it. And then develop a solution for that problem. Have your students design something that will address that problem. It can be the main conflict if you are working on identifying the conflict in a story, or it can be just a small problem that your characters are facing. And or your nonfiction people are facing. And I forgot what their names are. I guess it's just people, not characters, because they're real. Nonfiction, they're real. But and then once you have these solutions for this issue or this problem, this conflict, then come back to the story, finish it, and compare and contrast your solutions to what the story provided. What was the actual solution? You're also evaluating, you're comparing and contrasting, so your blooms are at such a higher level than they would be if they were just sitting and reading that book. Think of how well you have to know a story in order to do something like that, as opposed to just filling out a worksheet. Another thing is, we both kind of thought this was a great idea. Write your own book.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Because creation in STEM, it's not just engineering. It's not just science. It's especially if you're appealing to that STEAM side that adds the art. It does have that art aspect and that design aspect, that design thinking. A lot goes into writing a book. The plotting, the timeline, the sequencing, problem solution, it's a lot. So having someone that maybe writes a book and then having them paired with an illustrator. So if you have someone that's maybe more graphically inclined, you could have that, and then you could pair a third student and have them create a coding game off of that story. Absolutely. So there are so many options. Shane, your phone's ringing. She has a phone ringtone too.
Dance break.
I know. Wait, there it is. Yes. But so those are just some. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's so good. So, okay, it's done. But those are some ideas that we have either done in our classes or come up with or found online. And we encourage you to grab a couple, try some. It doesn't have to be some big transformation of your lesson. It can truly just be, hey guys, I know we were going to fill out a worksheet about this, but let's do one of these things instead.
Yes, absolutely. And adding real quick about the book, having them write their own book, think about having them do a STEM activity and create a book about what that activity was, but then make them have a fictional story about it. So they have to include the steps they did in the STEM, but also add a fictional element to it and make it pretend. And that's a lot of thinking and creativity that has to go into doing something like that. And then also having them do an engineering design journal. And that just means having them sketch out and draw things that they're doing on a consistent basis, daily, every other day. And that lets students get that writing and expression through drawing and sketching. And maybe the ones who struggle with writing will be a little more motivated to start sketching and drawing out their thoughts, and then can elaborate with writing as the time progresses and they get more comfortable with it.
And there was a teacher that, did you remember her name? Do you remember who it was?
No.
Well, Dana was saying that she was like, oh, I found that there's this teacher. I read this stuff online that instead of writing journals, she calls them engineering design journals.
Yes.
Even that, the change in the name has a shift in purpose.
Yes.
So even just thinking about how you can reframe things in our own mindsets as educators.
Absolutely.
So
Same as calling your students scholars instead to get that scholarly mindset. Calling them, get out your engineering design journal. Sounds much better than just get your journal out of your desk. It's putting that putting that vibe out there for everybody.
Ready to work. Let's do this thing. Well, we hope that you can take some of these and make them your own. And if you try some, please let us know. Tag us if you are on Twitter or post it to Facebook or whatever. We would love to see what you guys are doing. And make sure to follow the hashtag FWEDChatLive on many social media platforms because we do broadcast weekly. And thank you so much for joining us, especially on our first Facebook Live and Periscope Live. It was very meta.
Multitasking.
I know. All right, so thank you again for joining us, and have a happy Thursday.
Bye.